Hello, and welcome to By Design, a journey to discovering how heritage, tradition, and culture influence the way people problem solve through the process of genuinely listening and learning from each other's stories. On this episode, we're celebrating Black History Month with Ebone Grayson, a very talented illustration artist and designer. She's one of last year's Ink War competition winners at the Creative South Conference and is known best for her Zodiac illustration series. Ebone currently runs her own successful illustration business, Sugar Pop, where she tests the boundaries of femininity. Today, Ebone will be sharing stories about her journey researching her origin. She'll be talking about her culture growing up in the South and the first time she realized she was different. Ebone will also be talking to us about her Black African American upbringing in a household full of strong, independent women and how it's played a vital role in influencing the way she problem solves today. Ebone, welcome to By Design.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I love your story and I can't wait to share it with everybody. We've known each other for a while now. We've known each other for 2 years and we've gone to class together multiple times. And It's amazing because, we didn't really get to know each other as much as we would have liked, or we thought we did.
Yeah. And then we found out whoa, I don't know anything about you, friendo.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your heritage? Maybe you can trace back a little bit of how you guys came to America.
Okay. Well, I was born in Jacksonville, North Carolina. My father was in the service. He was a Marine. But when I was 3 years old, after they had my younger brother, we moved back down to Florida where all my family, my mom's family and his family were located. And I've been here ever since. But my heritage goes back to, unfortunately, as a Black American, our culture and our heritage has kind of been, I don't want to say erased, but it has been put through the grinder. It's hard to trace back the exact location of what tribe I came from, what part of Africa I came from. So because of censuses that weren't completely honest, or if they were even taken. My family comes from a family of slaves. So that whole history is it's sad. It's a very sad, dark, the more you learn about it, the more it gets a little bit sadder, a little bit more, oh, that's interesting, but a little bit more, that happened. So the furthest, my mom is really big on trying to date back to where we came from. So she's been working very hard for years and years and years trying to connect the pieces. And the furthest she was able to get to was maybe, what was it, a 7th generation grandfather that was in the census who came from England. And his father was a white man from England. So if you put the pieces together, slave owner had probably raped his mother. He came over on the boat to Florida and was taken by another slave owner. And that's where the whole beginnings of at least on my mother's side of the family began.
Yeah. And you don't know who his mom is, right?
No. We're still trying to figure out who his mom even was.
Wow. So, and in the census, they didn't used to put any information about who they owned or anything like that.
The thing about the census is sometimes they just take on this their owner's name, their last name. Sometimes they don't put anything. Sometimes they're just a number. So it's really hard to figure out who was who. And then of course as years go on, a lot of slaves don't have education. There were no education, so they don't know how to read or write. There's estimations and births and dates, and even names are misspelled and changed, and it's oh, he was so and so, but really he was oh, his name was Mark Jacobs, but really it's Mark Johnson. But it's so it's a mess.
Yeah, it sounds like it's horrible, and it sounds like it's kind of a way of not treating people as people, but more as
things and animals, basically. Yeah.
And it's horrible. And I think we've discussed, you and I, how the Black African American people who have come from this had to kind of adapt to that idea by, taking on other people's children and as their own. And that has also messed up kind of the trail of history. So can you talk a little bit about that and what people might not know? Because, for example, I come from a different background. I grew up in Jordan. I don't have knowledge about Black history. I don't
Right.
know. I never had to learn about slavery, except in my religion class when we talked about slavery thousands of years ago and how, as part of being a Muslim, if to account for a sin or to, get rid of a sin, you had to free a slave. So
Right.
that was my only knowledge of it. And even when I came to America, I mean, you hear about it from the media and the culture, but you don't really know much. I mean, I had no idea. And plus, I also mistake Black history, freedom of slavery with the civil rights movement. So if you can
Oh,
talk
okay.
a little bit about both, because it blew my mind that slavery was 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my head, for some reason, I felt like it was 50 years ago. But that's
Mm-hmm.
another struggle that you guys went through, which was the civil rights movement. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, educate us, because I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, the civil rights movement, my grandma was during that whole civil rights movement. She grew up during segregation, so she remembers all of that. And my grandfather remembers all of that. They lived it. Um, let me see if I can do this right. My great grandmother, so the mother of my great grandmother, her husband was born, he was about 7 years old when slavery ended. And he was about 50 years old when he married her, and she was 13.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when she had my great grandmother, who was, so they're like 13 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird because it's like you see like the family, like the two of them together, and they're like holding hands, like older in their age, of course, like way older in their time, like probably in their 50s or 60s. And
Mm-hmm.
they look like sisters because they were so young.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They were really close too.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine, I
yeah.
mean, my youngest brother and I are 20 years apart. So can
Oh,
you
sweet.
imagine? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you speaking of your grandma, was it great grandma?
It was my great great grandma. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, I mean, you guys, have gone through this a while back. For
Hmm.
me, my mom's mom
Yeah.
was 16 and her husband was 20 years older than her. So,
Yeah. See, so
so
you same thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. And she
Hmm.
had my mom at a later age, but she definitely did have my uncle as soon as she got married, so 16 years apart.
Part.
And you can completely see, that they are, more kind of like siblings than they are like,
Yeah, yeah.
mother and son.
Mother.
But
Hmm.
yeah, I can relate to that side of it. But go on, continue talking about how it's affected you today, and what she tells you about that time period and what you guys kind of know as a
Yeah.
culture yourself, not just what they teach in books, but in
Right, right, right.
reality. Yeah.
Like during that time, like I can really only speak for my grandma, like since she's so like I'm really close to my grandmother. She's still with me. I love her to pieces. And she'll talk about like that whole like living in Jamestown, like in Florida, like during like the South during the civil rights movement and stuff. And she's always says like it's so like you have no idea what people went through. Like you guys just don't know like how hard it was. Like she always tells the story of how when they went shoe shopping, they were never allowed to put on the shoes. Like her mom had to like take a string and measure their feet with a piece of string and then go to the store and be like, I need a shoe this big. And of
Wow.
course the shoes never really fit right because it's
Mhm.
completely different measuring your shoe with a piece of string than actually putting it on.
Yeah.
It's my grandma also told me a story about when like later on when she was like dating my grandfather, they were
Mhm.
trying to go to a restaurant like on a date to eat,
Mm.
and the restaurant owner refused them. They weren't allowed inside. Like they just couldn't come in. They to be in the position of someone who, how do I say this? I think we take for granted like our rights, and I think we take for granted like
Yeah,
the day and the
definitely.
world that we live in now, because things were drastically different, and ironically it wasn't that long ago. We're
Yeah.
talking like 50, 60 years ago that this
Mhm.
all happened. Like, and I feel like in today's time, like no one really wants to talk about things, which is why
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know about a lot of things. They kind of think like, oh, slavery, like, yeah, I get it. Like it happened, blah, 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 years ago. Like it happened, blah. But they don't really go into the detail, and like they don't really look at the people and like their children and what the legacy they left behind, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of that slave culture. Like I'm a part of like a family that was separated at like, you know, ripped away from their country. Like I don't know where I came from. I'm displaced
Mm-hmm.
in this realm, and I'm like, my culture is gone.
To talk
So
back a little bit about, you know, people not wanting to talk about it, I think I don't want to just give excuses, but people feel like they're going to offend or say the wrong thing. But I feel
right.
like if somebody comes with a sincere interest, like
Hmm.
curiosity, and asks, you know, opens up and really talks about it, they don't even give like, I feel like, you know, everyone is so offended these days. It's so sensitive. They're,
Hmm.
you know, they don't want to talk about anything. They don't want to ask anything. And what happens is when you're not asking questions, then how do you expect the person in front of you
To give
to
an answer.
to give an answer and then to welcome your
Hmm.
curiosity? You know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, the person's going to be offended if you've never talked about something, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden you have an opinion about it or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, you're more than happy to talk about your history and culture
Oh
and
yeah.
and talk about, you know, all those rough times, because you feel like the more you speak about it, the more you bring awareness to it, um the more people are going to become knowledgeable, and then they're not going to be offending anybody, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think that's something that I hope that people take out of from
Yeah,
this
yeah, of
project.
course. Like the more you know, like the, you know, the better that we can like not move past it, because we should never forget what happened. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like the more we talk about it and the more detail we talk about it, like we talk about slavery, like we talk about the Holocaust, there'd be a totally different ethos as the way like that people sympathize with Black Americans, and like
Hmm.
understanding what it is, like the Jim Crow laws and being put down constantly and never being seen as an actual person,
Yeah.
you know?
No,
Like,
definitely.
yeah, so like the more like we like talk about it and not pretend like it didn't happen, like the more that we can start like, okay, well, let me tell you about this and that, and we can like begin like healing, I guess is the word.
And what I love about you is the fact that you, for example, like you know, you've come from such a rough background in history, but you've kind of like came out of it with like being strong, independent. Like you are such a little thing, you know, like you're you know, if when I saw you, you know, but you have such power and such essence, and I feel like, you know, because you come from such a rough background, like it's a good thing to kind of like you're creating a platform for others to be to feel empowered,
Hmm.
to you know, not just people from your own, you know, background, but
Yeah.
everyone, because I feel like, you know, with your illustrations, you know, you represent every type of woman, and I think that's, you know, beautiful.
Hmm.
And you've created something very extremely positive
Thank
with
you.
the history that you have. And I wanted to a little bit touch on basically how you grew up, and can you talk a little bit about how you grew up, and when did you realize you were different? You know, when
Okay.
was, you know, when you're young, you're innocent, like when did
Hmm.
you look around and finally realize like, okay, so I'm different? You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
talk a little bit
Um,
about that.
well, I grew up in Geneva, Florida, and for those who don't know where Geneva is, it's on the outskirts of Oviedo, and it's the boonies. It is the country. It is just trees and forests and cows and farm life. It's very out of the way. It's very country.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up with like my mom and her side of the family. So I grew up with my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, and my three other siblings. My
Mm-hmm.
younger sister came like way later. Like me and my sister are 8 years apart. So she was like way down when I was like already venturing into middle school, and she was like, "Oh, a baby, nice."
Cute.
I went to school in this tiny little school, Geneva Elementary, and it was predominantly white. There
Mm.
are probably maybe only 7 Black people in attendance at that school, and I could
Wow.
probably name them all and count them on my hands. There were not many Black people. There weren't even any Hispanic people during that time. Like the school's changed a lot since then, but like when I grew up, it was like mostly just white, and then me, my siblings, and some other Black kids
You
that
make it
were
sound
around.
like you're so old. She's only 24 years old. So
I know.
yeah,
It's so
this is recent. No,
this
it
is
hasn't
recent. This is
been.
recent. It's so funny because my sister, like like an 8-year difference span, because she went to the same elementary school, and like going there and seeing like it's so much more diverse now. Like the neighborhood's kind of changed a lot, which is like daunting. It's like, wow, I didn't grow up like this. But so I grew up predominantly around white people, but like, you know, my family is very like, we're Black. You know, I grew up around Black culture. I grew up listening to Black music. I grew up watching Black television. And when I went into middle school at First Jackson Heights, that was the first time that I realized I was a little different than most people. I'm like nerdy. I'm geeky. I like anime. I like manga. I like Japanese culture. That's just me. It's in a nutshell. And when I went to middle school for the first time, there was a lot more people, like way more diverse than anything I've experienced. It wasn't just Black and white. It was like Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, like everything in between. So it was completely different than when I started school. And when I hung out with like the other Black kids, of course, like there's way more now. The first thing they were always telling me is like, why do you talk like that? Why do you talk like a white girl? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I never really thought that I taught like a white person. Like, one, I have a speech impediment. So I was in speech therapy for like 4 years. So I already can't talk at all.
So add to that,
so add to that, like, I sound like a white person, that I was like, oh, okay. So that was like the first time I kind of felt like, oh, okay, a little different than everyone else. Like, I thought we were all the same. I listened to the same things. I grew up the same as everyone else, but the way I speak like was you're different.
Did you feel like you had to change that, or did you feel a little bit of pressure?
I did and I didn't.
That's good.
Yeah, like I kind of felt a kind of way about it, but I was a really happy, like really nice girl. So like it didn't really bother me that much. So it just continued on. Like, as long as I was a good person, I had friends, I didn't care. Like, I can't change the way I talk.
Yeah.
Especially
you've worked so hard.
Exactly. I already worked hard from going from like Elmer Fudd to like where I am now. Like I can't really change I can't change like now the tonage of my voice and the words that I choose. Like, it's already hard to talk for me. So it's like, what do you want? I can't help it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But like, it was fine.
Oh my God, that's so cute. But okay, so talk to us a little bit about how you were perceived by everybody else, not just your I don't want to say your people. That sounds so weird, but like like I don't know how to say it, girl. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see. Okay. I get you. Yeah. Well, like growing up, I guess the older I got, the more of like, high school comes around and people change, and you're not just, you can't just stay and play with your dolls and read your books anymore. Like, people are starting to date, and like boys are becoming a thing. And it's when you start realizing that, like, I wasn't very popular. I wasn't that popular in high school or whatever. It's like, I was I was really academic. Like, I was with my studies, like my getting into college, having the best grades, being Miss Raise Hand.
That
was, like,
I see totally. Like,
like that was me as a person. Like, I was very academic. I was very hardworking. I was in honor societies. I was in the color guard team. I was as active as I possibly could be to get into college. And thinking back, like, I remember when I was on the bus and I was going home, and a guy came. He like sat next to me, and I was like, "Hi." And he was just like, "Hey." And I was like,
describe this person.
He was
creative visual.
Oh my goodness. So he was kind of big. He was red-faced. He was white. He was from Geneva. So he was very country, very redneck. Okay. And I was, like, what's up, guy? And he was he just looked at me. He was just like, you're really pretty for a Black girl. And I was like, huh? He's like, you're really pretty for a Black.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
nothing.
I was so offended, like, with something that you think is a compliment, like, you could have just said, like, wow, you're really pretty, and just cut blank, simple, been done, like, oh, thank you. No, but you had to, like, when you say things like that, it sets a tone of, like, what it is to be a Black girl. Like, you're saying that, like, I'm the exception outside of everyone else in my race
Mm-hmm.
that can be viewed as someone pretty or
Yeah.
like nice looking, you know,
And it
like,
also can hit your confidence as a female, like
yeah.
not just a person of color, but like it hits you as a woman, you know, like,
Hmm.
oh, oh, I should just pity myself because, I'm not pretty
Yeah.
based on standards. I'm just pretty because I'm the prettiest of my kind or
Yeah,
whatever. Like
exactly.
it definitely hits you and your self-esteem. And instead of taking it as a compliment, you're like, what? What did you say? Yeah, no, definitely not okay. And I can only imagine how you felt at the time, as a
No.
young growing up, still working on your confidence, still working on your personality and all of that. It definitely is not okay. And for him, like, he actually said that, like, oh my God.
Yeah, he said that. But I mean, I've had worse things said to my face, I guess. Like, you have like that side of the spectrum, and then I've just had people straight up tell me like they're just not into black girls to my face. So it goes both ways. So it's
Yeah.
like, what do you want from me? Like, what can
Yeah.
I do?
No, but
Like,
it's kind of odd to hear how normal it is for you to hear that, how okay people feel to say that to another human being. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, thankfully, I've never, I've been discriminated against. Obviously, I lived in Jordan, and
Hmm.
because of the war as a Palestinian coming into Jordan, the Jordanians felt like we were stealing their jobs, and we were, filling up their school system and all of that. But that's normal,
Yeah.
I've gone through the discrimination with that. I've even been discriminated against here in America, once people find out that I am a Muslim Arab. Okay.
Hmm.
Not everybody, thankfully, but I've had, to my face, straight up, a relationship. I've had a friend for 2 years who I've let around my children, my child at the time. We'd have, lunch together and all of that, call me up out of the blue and be like, you need to lose my number. You need to stay away from me, blah, 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 out of nowhere. And, for me, I was just like, whatever. Okay, I'm going to do that because now you're scaring me. Like, I
Yeah.
don't
Like, I don't want
need.
anything to do with you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. But can you imagine, like, having a friendship and out of
yeah.
nowhere getting, that message? So
That's
that
scary.
was my experience with racism and discrimination.
Hmm.
Thankfully, it hasn't happened since then, but I choose who to surround myself with. But for you, like, it's not like you can hide who you are. You know what I
No.
mean? And it kind of sucks that you have to go through that, and it's not okay. I'm glad you're talking about this, and I'm glad you're letting people know that you are human
Mhm.
and you have feelings, and there are certain things that if you don't want to hear it, then you shouldn't be saying it to other people.
Right. Yeah.
um so let's talk a little bit about what traditions you have growing up, and talk a little bit about your like family oriented culture, how colorful and diverse it is. Like, I want to learn more.
Okay. Well, my family, I was raised, like I mentioned before, I was raised mostly by my mother and like her side of the
Hmm.
family. And I'm not trying to generalize or like speak for all Black people, but I
Hmm.
feel as though like most of them do have a closer relation with the maternal side rather than the paternal side. I
Hmm.
know way more about my mother and her grandmother and like her whole family line than I do than about my grandfather or about my dad's family.
Hmm.
But which is, it's more
Yeah.
about learning and stuff. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't stop me from figuring out about them. My grandpa actually grew up in a family of 18 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of them, let me think. Yeah, so I think, okay, so technically I think it was 19, but the baby didn't make it, which is crazy.
Bless his mom's
Yeah,
heart. I have two
he
kids.
went through the ringer. I was
Oh
like
my God.
18 kids, and I think
Oh,
my grandfather is the oldest of them all.
wow.
Yeah, which is
That's
crazy.
awesome. I'm the oldest of six, and I thought that was insane.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Anytime I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
it's a lot of babies.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
But when I like growing up, like I grew up like really close to my grandma, which I think is a pattern in my family, honestly. And like my mom was really close to her grandmother. Her grandmother was my grandmother was very close to her grandmother. It must be like something in the water or something, because we're all
Yeah.
close to each other's grandmas. And like usually, like I guess tradition wise, like we'll all come together for like cookouts. like
Mm-hmm.
family cookouts and things, and we'll all get the family together and we'll eat food and we'll like talk and play music and stuff. And it's a huge family reunion thing that we all come
Yeah.
together and meet. There's so many cousins, you
Yeah.
know,
Do you guys
cousins
all live
reunion.
in Florida, or are you scattered everywhere and then everybody comes? Oh,
We are
okay.
scattered everywhere. Like we've got a lot of family in Florida. We've got family out in Pennsylvania. We've got family out in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arkansas, California. We are everywhere,
What?
and that's just
Okay.
on my grandma's side.
At least you know you have a place to stay at whenever you go visit.
Exactly, exactly. It's like, well, I never need to go to Virginia. I know.
Yeah. You don't have to pay for a hotel or anything.
No, I'm set.
Plus, at least you get one meal out of that, right?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, come on, auntie. Like,
I love it.
it's
Yeah,
good. It's good.
we have family around New York, Florida, Texas, so it's at least those places it's easy to venture out. And now that we live in California, it's so much easier for our side of family to come visit California
Yeah.
when they haven't. So I
Nice.
love that you guys are scattered.
Mhm.
But when do you guys get together, and do you guys have like a family reunion that you guys do once a year maybe?
I know my dad on my dad's side of the family, and I've never gone to his side. They'll do a giant family reunion up in Mississippi, which is
Hmm.
where a lot of his family is from. For us, like our cookouts normally just kind of tend to be like celebratory, like whenever someone's like a birthday, or like something like big happened, like a
Uh-huh.
baby,
Yeah.
or anniversaries, things like that. Like those are causes for us to come together and like celebrate it.
Yeah.
But those are like on a like smaller scale than like my dad's, who I really would like to go to, like the giant like family Mississippi, like everybody from everywhere is coming together, and that's a family reunion I need to get to. That would be a
Yeah.
little overwhelming. It's a lot of people, but like the cookouts I
Yeah.
go to are like at least what, maybe 30 people show up maybe.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a
No, that's
small
awesome. It sounds like maybe they need to like rent a farm and then everybody gets
scale.
to, yeah, it sounds
Like a
cool.
giant thing. Mhm.
We have a family reunion. We don't really call it a family reunion. It's
Yeah.
just somebody decides to get married back home, and we end up trying to make that wedding as
Okay.
much as we can because tickets are just expensive. But for example, my brothers get married in the summer, so a lot of our family are going to go back home, and we have my grandpa's house. And usually you have like 4 to 5 families in a house that has 6 bedrooms.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and each family has like 5 kids. So, and they're all like now almost like they're all teenage, young adults.
Oh gosh,
So,
they're not even like babies.
yeah, exactly. So you can imagine that house for, I don't know, a month or so is like insanely
Packed.
packed. Yeah.
Oh
But
my
the
gosh.
kids, they love it because they have the best memories. A lot of them, they haven't seen each other in a long time. So we try to do that every year, but it's mostly maybe every 2 to 3 years now. It just depends on if there is nothing that important for us to go to attend, then
Mhm.
my husband and I are trying to kind of like, instead of spending money and going back home, maybe taking a vacation or something like that and
Yeah.
exploring the world or whatever. But
No.
definitely I could totally understand like family drama, being in close contact for such a long time and is intense. But it's
Yeah, I could
definitely a good
imagine.
time. It's definitely a good time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Never a
Memorable.
dull moment with a house full of people. Ooh, is it
Yeah.
hot? I feel like it's so hot. So many people, so many bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Um,
I've seen like the pictures and your videos that you post of like the big weddings and stuff, and I'm always like, oh, it's so
thank
beautiful. Like
you.
so many people. Like I love it. I love
Thank
watching,
you.
like seeing the world of through your eyes,
Oh my
since
God.
I can't experience it.
Thanks to Snapchat,
Yeah.
now it's like stories and stuff because even like my Middle Eastern friends, like, that are not from my village, they never, I would talk about it, but they never understood it until I started posting. And then when they saw how continuous the parties are, they're like,
Yes.
your summer is like one full
Yes.
party.
I was watching those stories like, oh my gosh, like this
Yeah.
wedding is still going. Like,
Uh-huh, uh-huh. It's funny because it's just different people on the stage, parties keep on going. Yeah, it's intense, but it's fun.
it
Can you
looks
talk a
like
little
them.
bit about I love that you have like a four generations of women. Kind of, you grew up in a household with four generations of women, and I can imagine that you guys maybe have passed down certain traditions, maybe from your great grandma to down to you guys. What do you guys? Is there a certain tradition that you've held on to growing up that was passed down to you, possibly by your great grandma?
Uh, I don't really think we have any like traditions like that, unfortunately. Like,
How do you celebrate getting into adulthood, maybe,
oh, I
or?
don't like it's so funny. Like I guess for me, like it's still very like um very American, very American
Mhm.
style. Like it's I mean, when I think of adulthood, I'm like, are we talking like about periods and
Oh
like
my God.
like what adulthood are we
Maybe.
talking about? But
Depends.
it was all very like I grew up very like just typical like Black American, like which is American. Like there was nothing like any, which I wish I could say that I had like some kind of like cultural thing that was passed down through the line. Like unfortunately I don't have any.
Yeah. No, you're
It
good.
sucks.
It's
But
just a question.
yeah,
You never know. Trying to dig
yeah,
deep.
yeah, we're gonna dig a little deeper, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about some misconceptions that people might have about Black African Americans that you want to bring awareness to?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes into like my general, like the whole reason I started Sugar Pop
Hmm.
was it's really based on being like a Black female for me. I'm a Black female, and there's a lot that I feel like people don't understand about Black female. Like for one, like we're very diverse. None of
Hmm.
us are the same. We're all interested, like look at me. Like I'm interested in so many things. Like anime, Japanese culture, Korean culture, like Black culture. Like I have like I'm interested in just cultures and different experiences, and I talk not like every other girl, I dress not like every other girl. Like women are so diverse, and Black women are a part of that.
Hmm.
Black women are women.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's exactly what it is. It's you're
yeah,
human.
we're
You
human.
have different interests.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
We're not just like put in this box and that's it. Like we're not just a loud mouth, like big, scary, intimidating, like ugly, like race of people. Like we're women, and I
Hmm.
wanted to represent that in my Sugar Pop series. Like we come in so many different shades, and our hairs are all different textures and types, and
Hmm.
we're like, I just really want Sugar Pop to be like a thing of beauty. Like
Hmm.
I want my Black women sisters to realize like you're beautiful.
Hmm.
Like regardless of like how people view you or what they may say or if they're into you or not, like you are
Uh-huh.
beautiful regardless. And you can like this and you can like that and you can wear this and you can wear that. Like be proud of your curves, be proud of your features, and like you're beautiful. And that's what something I really want to stress out the most, just because I know a lot of people view Black people as scary and intimidating and
Hmm.
inhuman a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And I just want to really like make a statement saying like, you're validated and you're a person,
Yeah.
and fuck them.
Yeah. No, just because, you talk a certain way or you have a certain pitch that's louder than what you're used to or whatever doesn't mean that you're intimidating or you mean harm to somebody, which is
Exactly.
definitely a misconception that, I mean, it, I I don't understand. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
don't understand. I definitely, since moving to the US, realized this, started to seeing it as viewing it from the outside in.
Mhm.
Definitely something that's very prominent that is unfortunate for my child who's growing up in this country to have to already at 6 years old know the difference between someone who is Japanese or Hispanic or
Mhm.
Black or whatever. Because for me, they should all be kind of like the same. This is your friend, which he
Yeah.
does. He embraces everybody,
Yeah.
and that's because he's innocent. And I feel like once the media continues to kind of like brainwash people, I'm hoping that won't change because I'm trying to raise him to be a better human being and to view people
Mhm.
as human first.
Yeah. Just
So
accepting.
yeah, definitely. But I love that you've created a whole brand to speak out and empower and to give a platform for people to recognize that your Black African American culture is very diverse. You
Yeah.
know, not just that you as a Black African American is diverse from other people, but the race itself.
Yeah.
Am I saying this right? The race? I mean, like the culture. Yeah, you know what
I
I mean?
understand. Yeah, like that we are like
Forgive my English. Sometimes I use terms that are translated and they're not correct, but I try my best to, you know, be politically correct.
right. No,
Yeah.
I got you. No, I understand
Yeah.
completely. Yeah. I just wanted to yeah. So sugar
Talk a
pop.
little bit more about how you got into illustration, and then we can expand on sugar pop. So, how
Okay.
did you get into illustration and art? You know, how did you become interested in that field?
Okay, so again, like back in the day when I
Uh-huh.
was a young wee lass, I was so big on just anime. Like I grew up watching Sailor Moon. I grew up watching Card Captors and Dragon Ball Z and all these Japanese cartoons and even American cartoons too, like Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory. Like all these shows like have shaped me into the person you see before you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, like, I wanted to be an animator originally. I wanted to go into animation as a kid. So that's where it began. Like, I get my pencil and my paper and I sit down and I would like copy the images that I saw. Like, I
Yeah.
copy like Sailor Moon. I would copy, Powerpuff Girls. I used to make comics of like, I made my own Sailor Scout and my mom called me Sailor Star and I was
Oh,
like the
it's
black one.
cute.
And
Oh
so
my God,
like
that's adorable. I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
same thing with like the Powerpuff Girls. I would like make my own comics and I would make like a black Powerpuff Girl to like
Uh-huh.
include in there. So I'm always inclusive.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the older I got, my mom started buying me more books, encouraging me to like draw and like art and things. I was like really lucky because I know a lot of kids when they get to that age of college and they had to make the decision of like, what are you gonna be? I was
Uh-huh.
really fortunate that my mom let me go into art, and pursue graphic design because like not many people get that. Like a lot of people deter their kids, like you don't be an artist. Go to
Yeah.
school to be anything else. Don't go into art because you're not going to make any money. So I was
Yeah.
really fortunate that my parents were so encouraging from like my young age to like tell me like, no, keep going. Like you're good. Like your stuff is people like it. Like I like it. Like keep making stuff. Like get better. Go to school. Like they believed in me, which is
That's
really,
beautiful.
it's great.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate on that because not everybody's so lucky as me.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I was my dad I used to be into fashion and illustrating like fashion pieces, and obviously as a young kid like my fashion was like a skirt and a
Yeah.
t-shirt. But you know what I mean? But I definitely copied, and I didn't know what graphic design was. I just
Yeah,
knew that
exactly. Me either.
I was
Hmm.
interested in, at the time like billboards and stuff. And when I spoke, my dad encouraged my creativity. He just
Hmm.
wanted me to be mindful of what I chose to study, because he definitely wanted me, to be an engineer. It's more prestigious, or an architect. So he pushed me very smartly towards architecture, and eventually it didn't work out, but definitely, it's good to come from a space where people are encourage your creativity, and my dad was just a little slick about it.
Yeah. Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad also, like when I was going to school, my dad always used to tell me like, oh, you should go into, like my dad went into business. He said, you should go into business. And I'm like, Dad, I can't, like I'm bad with math. I make so many businesses, no
Hmm.
wonder. But like, I mean, he wasn't wrong. I like somehow like design, like it's weird how all these things kind of tie into one another. Like,
Hmm.
your architect background and like design, like they help each other, like the
Yes.
line, the like creativity, the geometry and things like that, it like fits so perfectly in the design world. I mean,
Hmm.
it's the same thing. And like same thing with business, like business and design are so important, like especially if you're gonna freelance, like they're hand in
Yes.
hand, like branding, understanding like the business side of things. And like my dad kind of got what he wanted. Like I am business minded now more
Yeah.
so than I was when I went into college, just because of the hustle. And
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. It's funny how what you study in college is influenced by the culture that you're from, because back home business is frowned upon. If you studied
really
business, that means you're just going to waste time in college. It's not, yeah,
interesting.
because Jordan is like, at the time, I don't know now how it is, but you know, studying business is like anybody can do business. You know what I mean? No, you should study something substantial. But in America, you really need to, it's a valid, like a very strong,
Yeah.
major to study, because
Mhm.
it's a good thing to have. And that's why a lot of people end up getting it as their master's. So they
Yeah.
get that as like their MBA or whatever.
That's really
Um,
interesting.
so definitely culture has a big role in what people end up studying. And it's interesting to see your take on it and how you were able to kind of like merge what you wanted to do with kind of like, you know, your business savviness that you probably got from your dad and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that's very, very interesting to like learn about. And now that you have your own illustration business, it makes so much sense, you know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did the idea of sugar pop come about? I understand like the push and the energy behind it, but how
Mhm.
did you come up with like the concept, and what made you want to start your own illustration business?
Well, okay. So back when I was still in school and I was taking a screen printing class
Hmm.
at the time, and the way the class worked with like the first project would be a one color, the second project would be two color, three color, and it would expand from there.
Hmm.
So I was like, I don't know what to do. Like trying to think of like what am I supposed to make? So I ended up making the illustration of this cute black African American girl with her giant afro puffs, and it's like covered in like barrettes and all sorts of things in her hair, and she's literally just like putting her middle fingers together in like a smile, like kind of like a don't tell me to fucking smile, basically,
Uh-huh. Oh,
which is
that's cute. I
yeah.
love it. Yeah.
Like it was like
Yeah.
cute, and it was really cute like on first glance, like oh that's really cute, and then you see like the middle fingers and you're kind of like oh okay, it was a little aggressive, like all right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
I like when I did that print, like I fell in love with it, and like a lot of people really took to it. Like people in the class
Uh-huh.
would tell me like they see it on the rack hanging after you like do the print and then be hanging up. People would be like, "Oh my god, did you do that? That I love that. That's so cool. Can I have one?" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, like thank you so much. That's so cool. I'm glad that you like it."
Yeah.
And so the next time we did the project, the two color print. So I did another thing around that same thing, kind of like a really cute girl doing something kind of a little not aggressive, but a
Not
little bit more
aggressive.
like
Provocative would
provocative.
be, yeah.
So that one was the girl with the brass knuckles and like the C word written on her knuckles and bite
Mm-hmm.
me in the back, and she's wearing like tart on her shirt. So it's a lot of swear words like all
Uh-huh.
over the place. And I feel like a lot of I feel like men get away with swearing and using curse words and stuff in their design. But when it
Uh-huh.
comes to like women, I feel like we get a little bit more of a kind of like a side eye, like it's
Uh-huh.
not as like welcomed for women to be that vulgar or that rude or that
Yeah.
whatever. But I'm like, fuck it, like I don't care. Like
Yeah, I love to hear that perspective of yours of how women and men are kind of also portrayed differently in the design world. So it's
yes.
not just, based off of race or culture.
Hmm.
It's also in your field of profession. Like that's
Yeah,
insane.
it follows you
Um,
everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, but I love that you kind of saw that and kind of took advantage to speak out and represent yourself with your talent, and kind of like, push boundaries
Yeah.
through that, because you're so talented. I mean, I love everything you come
Oh.
up with, from your bunny series to your Zodiac series. And I
Hmm.
love that you come up with series. So it's not just one thought of like one idea and you just pop like a print or whatever, but you have a storyline to a lot of of your work. And I think it says a lot about you. It says a lot about your background, and it says about a lot about how you are all for inclusiveness.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not trying to kind of just represent yourself and where you're from. You really are trying to achieve the American dream of having an inclusive environment, or living in a world that's fully inclusive, where everybody treats each other as human beings first, which I
Yeah.
love that. So kudos to you for being so amazing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love the story about color pop and color pop, sugar pop, sugar
Close. Yeah.
pop.
I love color pop too.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So I see a lot of you and your design and your culture, of your culture and your design. What's wrong with me today? But as an ending, can you tell everybody where they can see your work and where they can find you online and how they can get a piece of your artwork, your
Or a piece of me.
provocative artwork? Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'm very active on the Instagram. You can find me at Ebony, Ebone underscore Janelle, Junell.
Mhm.
I'm also on Facebook under A Little Rude, A Little Cute. That's my Sugar Pop actual like fan page. Fan page. Wow. Okay, let me
Cute.
take back a little bit. Like my
Yeah.
page for art. You
Yeah.
can go check that out. And also you could just find all of my professional work at ebonedesigns.com dash
Mhm.
in there. And I have an Etsy store as well. So if you look up Sugar Pop Arts, you can find all my stuff and you can take home a print if you really want to love me and put me on your wall. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Ebone, for sharing your story with us today. It's been wonderful learning more about your heritage, traditions, and culture. To learn more about Ebone, visit ebone-designs.com and follow her on Instagram at ebone_Janelle. Please visit hitbydesign.com/3 to watch today's episode, video recording, show notes, and extras. And that's where we'll basically have all her information where her Etsy shop is. I want to encourage you to listen positively, because when people talk about their culture, it usually involves very intimate aspects of their life. It's an honor to be invited into their safe space, and it becomes your responsibility to protect and uphold the integrity of their stories. I'd love to thank you for joining me. And remember, your normal is weird to people who don't understand you, but your weird is what makes you special. So embrace your weird and spread to others the love and acceptance you want to gain. Until next time, I'm your host, Hiba, and you've been listening to By Design. I mean, I had no idea, girl. I had no idea of the things that your family has gone through.
Oh yeah.
Nothing.
It's like, and
Yeah.
the more you like learn about it, and the more stuff that you hear about it, it just gets like
Yeah.
it gets it's always like weird. Like it's like sometimes it's good stuff and then sometimes it's meh stuff.
Yeah.
So it's sad. Like every time I always feel I'm happy for my mom because she really like wants to know, and she really
Yeah.
wishes that she was there in that time period so she could have asked those questions herself. Like my mom's a huge
Yeah.
history buff. I know I wish I knew like little legacy, but it's like my grandma always said that she had a relative and
Hmm.
she swears that she was like Native American. She swears by it because her
I should have
family.
recorded this, by the way.
Oh,
Look at you giving us with more juice. Okay, go ahead.
well, I'm
This
still
is
recording
special for everyone who showed up. So I'm not recording this.
behind the scenes.
Nobody's going to be seeing this. Yeah. So you guys get a special treat. Thank you
Special
so much
story.
for joining us. Yeah, live. Okay, go ahead. So,
But she swears that she was Native American because she was very like she had like very cut cheekbones. She was like light skinned. She was very stern. She was like one of those women who was like children should be seen and not heard. So that's why my grandma never spoke to her because she was terrified of her. Like she was a very like woman. Like she was not warm at all.
mhm,
And she said like her hair was just so long and dark, like she could sit on it. And my mom, she's like, she really wants to do that gene test, like that genealogy test, like real, like
mhm.
know like a percentage of where you come from, because she's kind of like the more she hears, she's like, I don't think she was Native American. Like I don't think she was that at all. Like because you know, with like learning about like the history, she also learns a lot about the African. So my mom will
Mhm.
like sit and research like African tribes and people, and she's noticed like different tribes have like very like specific features. Like
Mhm.
Africans have very like pronounced cheekbones. They have
Yeah.
very like pronounced facial structures. So she thinks like, maybe she was just mixed. Maybe she could have had like Asian in her. Like, there's a lot of different possibilities, of what
Yeah.
that woman could have been. And it's unfortunate because no one asked because they were scared
Wow.
of her.
And was she a relative or was
She was a
she?
relative. She was. I can't remember. I can't recall if she was supposed to be my great 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 grandmother's mother,
Uh-huh.
or if she was someone even like further down that line. Like I can't remember, but she was
No,
definitely
that sounds interesting. I've always felt like I had some weird gene thing majigger, because like where I'm from, it's not typical or normal to have light skin,
mm-hmm.
blue eyes, and
Yeah.
dark hair.
Yeah.
Like a unicorn back home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not normal whatsoever. And then, you know, anytime I hear anybody say, oh, you have pretty blue eyes, I'm like, you have blue eyes.
Hey, see?
What are you talking
Figure
about?
it
Like, I live in America. Everybody
Yeah,
has blue
that's
eyes
why.
here, you know?
Like, okay.
And so I've
Like back at
always
your home,
asked,
they're different. Yeah.
yeah, I always asked my dad, like, do we have anybody in like in our family tree that was not Arab or anything?
Mhm.
And they've always said no. Then my dad keeps telling me that I look like his grandma from his dad's side. So,
Okay.
um, he says I am a copy of her, but I don't know. I have no idea. Because you know, it's very possible that we have some
Oh
that
yeah.
we would have some British gene or whatever because we were occupied by them. But
Exactly. Yeah.
he said no, no. So I don't know.
You should check anyway because you never know what might be in
Right?
that gene pool. Like I encourage everybody to go out and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
look into your genetics because you may have something in there that you didn't think you were. Like at all.
yeah,
Like a lot of you may have some black in you that you didn't know about, or like, you know, some Asian that Oprah is like 3% Asian. Like she took
yeah.
that test and she
That's
realized
cool.
she's like, like you need to go. I say go check.
It's funny because I was watching Wendy. I love Wendy. I don't know if you know Wendy, but I love Wendy. She's a morning talk show host.
Mm-hmm.
Just for anyone who doesn't know,
Doesn't know.
but I'm obsessed with her. And she was talking about an artist, the one that sang Blurred Lines.
Oh,
Um,
Robin Thicke.
Robin Thicke,
Yeah.
you're good at this game, girl.
Yeah.
You always know who I'm talking about. And he's married to she's black. I
Yes.
think she's black.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's no longer married to her.
Yeah,
They
they know.
separated, and they have a child, and he is so white looking, but
Mm-hmm.
he will have to struggle with not being accepted
Mm-hmm.
as being black, even though he's half black. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So that kind of sucks because why should he not embrace another side of him, even though he doesn't look it? You know what I mean?
exactly.
Another person who struggles with that is Michael Jackson's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody was so in awe when she did an interview with Rolling Stone, I think,
Yeah.
magazine, and she spoke about how her dad encouraged her to embrace her black heritage because
Mm-hmm.
that's what she is.
Yeah.
And it's funny that it's not her people that are not embracing her, it's more the white people that are just like, no, she's white, she looks white. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, chill, okay? It's whatever she wants to do. Who
Mm-hmm.
cares? She's human. And I
Yeah.
think that's the message of this show and this project. And I love you guys for watching. Thank you so much for your time. And if anybody has any questions for Ebone, you guys know where to find her. She is very sociable. And nice to have you guys. Next week, I'm going to have Ana Juan Gomez,
Yeah.
and she is from Spain, and we're going to talk a lot more about her coming from a smaller village than even mine, and learning a little bit more about her culture and her travels and how she stays very culturally diverse and embraces not only her culture but everyone else's cultures, and educates herself about that. So see you guys next Tuesday at 11 o'clock a.m. PST time. Love you guys for watching. Thank you so much, Ebony. See
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.